Apparently, sheriff's investigators, detectives, possibly coroner's people looking at that body, trying to get more information about who this person is and what happened. So that investigation is going to take some time. So I think we can expect that the YouTube headquarters is probably going to be closed the rest of the night and maybe into the early hours of tomorrow.
And as we heard from Google Communications, sort of telling employees, all meetings for the rest of the day, obviously, they've been canceled. They set up a hotline, a helpline to assist employees in the next coming days on where they might need to check in and also any opportunity to get counseling or any sort of help that they might need. But again, the headline right now is that the San Bruno police chief giving an update a short time ago that the suspected shooter, a woman, died of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, as we heard on the scanner traffic, all of the dispatch radio the dispatch that goes out to various law enforcement as they're coordinating their response, that a gun has been recovered. Again, though, the chief not really giving further information about what type of weapon was used. But as you mentioned, Ken, the ATF is there. They'll be tracking the movement, if you will, of that gun over the last couple of days. Was it registered to anyone? Was it legally owned? And did the woman allegedly involved in all of this, was it her gun? And exactly how she got to the headquarters. It seems as though, from what witnesses are telling Jesse, that she perhaps came there with an intent to do some harm. Witnesses telling Jesse that the suspected shooter in this, the woman involved, apparently shot her boyfriend, who was a YouTube employee, before killing herself.
Yeah, that goes to the motive, but again, authorities have not said anything about that. All they've confirmed is that the shooter was a woman. They have not made any connection between that shooter and anyone else other than 4 other people were shot and injured. So that's what police are telling us.
Right.
What others are telling us was that woman targeted her boyfriend at the YouTube campus. That needs to be confirmed, and we need to dig into that further. But that's a wide view of the Google headquarters, and you can see to the left those pink-colored umbrellas. That is where the shooter's body is right now, and where authorities are going over the scene, trying to determine exactly what happened here and make identity of who that person is.
And when you know now that the suspected shooter was found in that area outside, that gives you also an idea of what we're hearing from witnesses who were at the nearby Carl's Jr.
Right.
They were able to see, they were able to hear what was going on, again, because some of the activity wasn't taking place inside a confined space, but rather outside. So they heard, at least one witness telling our Jesse Gary, that he heard 3 separate bursts of gunfire. One sort of rapid pop, 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 a pause, another set of gunfire, another pause, and then a few more gunshots. And he also describing seeing a woman who had been shot either in the leg or the foot and needing some help there. And as we reported earlier, at least one person inside that Carl's Jr. Using a bungee cord to try to stop the bleeding.
Yeah, as a tourniquet. And you know, we don't know what kind of weapon. So if it was 7 shots, as that one woman from the Walmart across the street said that she said she heard 7 shots. That doesn't tell you if it's a handgun or a rifle, but if it's 7 shots and then it pauses, you would think maybe that was the time that it reloaded, because then there were more shots that followed after that. So these are all questions that are going to have to be answered as authorities continue to go through this.
And as the police chief told us that 3 people were injured and are being treated for their gunshot wounds, let's now go to KTV's Paul Chambers, where at San Francisco General they are treating 3 people, guessing that it probably is the 3 people that the chief was referring to. And Paul, any new information regarding the status of that 37-year-old man who is in critical condition?
Heather, no update on his condition right now, but I do need to change. He's actually 36 years old.
Okay.
We were first given misinformation there, but he's 36. We do know that he's in critical condition. And also, we just got word about 10 minutes ago about the status of everyone and explanation on exactly why the hospital is on lockdown.
So we've received 3 patients so far from the incident at the YouTube headquarters in San Bruno. 2 females and 1 male. We have a 32-year-old female who's in serious condition right now, a 27-year-old female in fair condition, and a 36-year-old male in critical condition. We're expecting additional patients.
How many more?
Don't know. We don't know how many additional patients we're going to get.
I heard the emergency ward was on lockdown. What was that all about?
Lockdown just means that we close access to the emergency department to everyone except patients. That's all it means. It doesn't mean we're closed.
Everyone except who?
Patients. Yes.
Still lockdown?
As far as I know, we are still on lockdown, yes.
Is that standard? Like, when does that normally happen?
It's standard for multiple casualty incidents like this, yes.
One more time, can you just tell us what you guys received and who they were?
So we've received 3 patients so far, 2 females and 1 male. We have 1 person in critical condition, 1 in serious condition, and 1 in fair condition.
Critical is the male, correct?
Correct.
1 woman is in serious, 1 woman is in fair?
That's correct.
Their ages 32, 27, and what?
And 36.
36 was critical?
36 is critical. That's the male.
Where these people were shot?
You mean what parts of their bodies? Yes, but I can't share that at this moment.
When you say you're expecting more people, are you expecting more people in critical condition or serious condition, or do we know?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know the conditions of the people we expect. At 3:30 this afternoon, we're going to convene again. I'll bring a trauma surgeon from our trauma practice here to explain in greater depth what the injuries are and what the conditions of the patients are.
Now, that'll be a half an hour from now, and of course, we will bring that to you live. And I will say this, he wouldn't say exactly what the condition was, but we did ask him, this is a trauma unit, there are bullets and there are gunshots. He kind of said basically you put it together, but he couldn't officially tell us that what it is. So trauma unit, gunshots usually work about the same thing. That's why they have someone here that's in critical condition. But of course, we'll have detailed information about that coming up, and we will have that confirmed by the doctors exactly what kind of wounds these people are suffering from.
All right, Paul, thank you. And of course, everyone concerned about the critical condition of the 36-year-old man, the other 2 women, one in serious condition, she's 32, and a woman in fair condition, she's 27. And just to clarify now, we're getting this dialed in. Maureen Naylor, KTVU's Maureen Naylor, reporting from Stanford Hospital. She says at this point, Stanford Healthcare has not received any patients from the San Bruno incident, but they are on standby. So what the chief said when he said 4 victims, it looks like that is the total number of victims, 4, even though we were getting reports from these different hospitals that they had more than that. So now we're down to 4 victims.
Yes, and perhaps it was just the chaos of the situation in which every hospital was told to be on standby, perhaps given the severity of the critical patient. Obviously, SF General, the closest, has the trauma center, and then maybe the decision was made to just take all 3 of them there. Want to let you know that President Donald Trump has tweeted in regards to the incident, to the shooting there at the YouTube headquarters, saying that thoughts and prayers are with everyone involved, and he also thanked the phenomenal law enforcement officers, as he called them, and first responders who are currently there on the scene. We have seen a massive law enforcement response to all of this. We do know that the calls came in around 12:46 this afternoon of multiple reports of shots fired. It was about 2 minutes later that the first officers from San Bruno Police arrived, and within a few minutes of getting to the scene, this massive YouTube headquarters in San Bruno, they found a victim outside the front of a nearby business. Shortly thereafter, they found a second person who was suffering from a gunshot wound, and the chief said that that person actually suffered from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, a woman who is believed to be the shooter. And then subsequently, they found 2 more victims at nearby businesses. Add it all up, and that equals the 3 people who are being treated right now at San Francisco General. The most serious, a 36-year-old man who is in critical condition.
And police are still at the scene. They still say they have to do a methodical search of the YouTube headquarters to find out if there are potentially any other suspects, shooters involved in this. But at this point, it does not appear to be the case. But just out of an abundance of caution and concern, police are still going to go through that building just to make sure that there is nothing else in there before they clear it and declare it safe.
And I do want to let you know what Google Communications is tweeting out. About a half hour ago, they sent an advisory to all of the current employees there at the San Bruno offices, telling them to continue to shelter in place until they receive official notice from law enforcement or perhaps Google Communications. Google, of course, owning YouTube. YouTube is part of the Alphabet company. And then about a minute later, they tweeted that all employees who were maybe heading to the YouTube headquarters, perhaps they had meetings later on today, that those have all been canceled, that they are to stay away from the area, and that they have provided employees with a helpline as they try to assess this situation. But again, as of about 30 minutes ago, they were telling everyone who was still inside that building to continue to shelter in place. We saw tweets from employees who described seeing people running past their desk and that they, in fact, barricaded inside various rooms with their coworkers.
You know, what's going to be the big interesting development in all of this is the motive for the shooter. What makes this more unusual than most of these mass shootings that unfortunately we seem to be going through a lot of the last few years is that this is a woman. I mean, we have had female shooters before, but it is more unusual to have that. So let's go to KTVU's Jesse Gary. He has some more information for us. Jesse.
Well, police are continuing to remove some of their equipment. Their coroner just arrived a short time ago and drove her van down to the crime scene. So that's here to, I guess, process the scene, the shooting scene, and then remove the body of what we believe to be the shooter, the female shooter who injured at least 4 other people in this. So that happened just within the past couple of minutes. Coroner wouldn't give us any information. Obviously, she's just getting here and has to begin the investigation. But just so you know, the coroner is here, and they are beginning the process of processing the actual shooting scene, getting evidence, and then they'll remove the remains, guys.
Yes, we had seen early on that body covered with a yellow tarp there near what seems to be maybe an outdoor courtyard, an outdoor cafe there on the campus of the headquarters. Jesse, have you had an opportunity to talk with anyone else, any other witnesses, any YouTube employees about what they saw and what they heard?
No, the employees aren't here. They've been, taken away from the scene. I have talked to some other employees who worked not for YouTube, but just from other companies who are asking if they can get back into their office buildings now that it appears as this is all over and resolved with the injuries and the self-inflicted suicide of the shooter. At least one building, which is the Walmart building to my left here, the security personnel for that building told me that they are letting their workers back in if they want to come back in. And so that's one building here that's doing that. Obviously not the YouTube building, but the Walmart building, which is across the street and off to my left, they're starting to let their workers back in if those workers do in fact want to come back in, guys.
Yeah, well, it's 3:05 in the afternoon. It's getting close to quitting time for a lot of the corporate office.
Right. Well, yeah. Right. Well, and Ken, I talked to a couple of employees for. I'm trying to see. She wouldn't tell me who she worked for, and I don't want to pry it out of her. But I said, this has been a harrowing, afternoon. She said that it has. So obviously, a lot of people are in no mood to just go back to work like all is normal. You hear these types of incidents of mass shootings all over the country, and now it happens right in your little office park here in San Bruno on the peninsula. Nobody wants to go back to work. You just want to get as far away from this kind of violence as possible.
Yeah, a little hard to focus when something like this happens. You just want to go home and hug your loved ones and, thank God that you're okay and you made it through it. So thank you, Jesse.
Want to read now a tweet from Apple CEO Tim Cook. He says, "From everyone at Apple, we send our sympathy and support to the team at YouTube and Google, especially the victims and their families." So obviously a lot of people, not only lawmakers, we've heard from Senator Dianne Feinstein, from Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, we've heard from President Trump in regards to all of this, but now we have Silicon Valley giants responding to what happened.
This is what we've been talking about all afternoon, the tarp covering the body of what we believe to be the female shooter. who was responsible for what happened here today. You can see the glass shattered door right there. We had somebody tell us that the shooting started inside the building, and the shooter shot through the door to apparently escape and made it outside, and then, as the chief described, died of a self-inflicted, what appears to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Yes, and now this gives you perspective on where all of this happened. When you talk to witnesses and they describe being outside the building but seeing this and hearing it, now you understand exactly what they were talking about. And when you take a look at that shattered window, that also gives you an indication of what went on. Here's
a live picture of what looks like a first responder being treated perhaps for some breathing issues. This looks like a little triage area that they set up outside to treat patients coming out that might need immediate assistance before they get put onto an ambulance. A lot of times in these kinds of situations, particularly firefighters and tactical officers who are carrying heavy equipment and gear on a hot day, they get overheated sometimes. They have some breathing challenges, and it looks like that could be what's going on here, where it looks like there's a firefighter who's sitting on the curb with a mask on, who is getting some oxygen to recover from that and resting up a little bit. So that's a long, hard day for a lot of people involved in this.
Yeah, and I assume that once officials and once the coroner arrives and has a chance to remove the body, perhaps some of these first responders will then be able to pull away from the scene. And when we heard from the police chief, not a whole lot of detail about exactly what took place, just sort of going through the timeline of when the calls were first reported, to when officers arrived, to when those victims were found, to when the suspected shooter's body was found, but no other information really beyond that. We did hear on police dispatch audio that a gun was recovered, but again, no information on the type of gun that was used and just who that gun belonged to. And then again, no official confirmation as to possible motive or who the shooter might have been targeting. Again, from our witnesses that have been talking to our Jesse Gary there at the scene, this seems to be a domestic violence issue in which a woman went to the YouTube headquarters, targeted her boyfriend, and then targeted others. But again, no official confirmation from authorities on that just yet.
All right, it's 3:10, coming up on 3:10 in the afternoon. For those of you who are just joining us, the very latest is that the shooter apparently died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It is a female, and you are looking at a live picture as firefighters gather around a first responder who is getting some treatment. Appears to be perhaps a little overheated or out of breath, but as that person is getting treated, we want to take you to the news conference that took place about a half hour or so ago from San Bruno's police chief. Here's what he had to say about what happened at the YouTube headquarters earlier this afternoon.
At 12:46 p.m. this afternoon, San Bruno Police Department received numerous 911 calls regarding gunshots at the YouTube campus located on Cherry Avenue in our city. San Bruno Police arrived on scene at 12:48 and immediately began a search for a possible shooter or suspect. Upon arrival, officers encountered numerous employees fleeing from the building. It was very chaotic, as you can imagine. We did encounter one victim with an apparent gunshot wound towards the front of the business as we arrived. Several minutes later, while conducting a search of the premises, officers located a second individual with a gunshot wound that appears to may have been self-inflicted. We are still working on confirming that. Two additional victims were located several minutes later at an adjacent business. The extent of all of the injuries of our victims are unknown right now. They were all transported for emergency medical care, but they are all unknown. So if I missed that, we have 4 victims who have all been transported for gunshot-related injuries, and we have one subject who is deceased inside the building with a self-inflicted wound that at this time we believe to be the shooter, but we're still following up on that. Multiple law enforcement agencies have responded to assist. We're very grateful for everyone's help and assistance. We could not have responded and accomplished this without everybody's help. This is an active event and an active investigation, and numerous law enforcement personnel from numerous different local agencies are still conducting a search of the business just to make sure that that it is clear. We conducted a quick, immediate search of the premises when the first officers arrived as pursuant to our active shooter protocol. And after that search was concluded, now we're going through with a methodical, slow search just to make sure that we cover all the bases. That's all I have for you at this time. We hope to have something a little later. I cannot give you, I cannot give you the time of the next press update, but we'll put that out as soon as we have that information.
You were saying...
I'm sorry?
Yeah, on ABC7, I'm hearing from YouTube employees that there were 2 shooters, a man and a woman.
No, I cannot confirm that.
Was the man or woman?
It's a female. Yes. My understanding is that they've been transported and they're being treated for injuries that are treatable. We're hoping for the best, obviously.
Are there more people inside the building, or?
My understanding is the building has been evacuated. There are people in the immediate area. We're obviously trying to contact a large amount of people to try to identify and gain some information from witnesses at the scene. So you can imagine it's a monumental task with the number of employees that work inside the building.
Can you tell us about what weapon or weapons?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell us about what weapon or weapons were recovered?
I don't have that information. I'm sorry.
Do you have police in San Bruno, the sheriff, who else is?
We have. I haven't taken inventory of all the agencies here. There are numerous agencies. We work well with our neighboring partners, and we're grateful that they're here. But there's a lot of them.
And do you have a gender of the shooter?
Yeah, I want to clarify that we did locate a victim with what we believe to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It's a female, but the investigation is still ongoing before we can put all the pieces together.
Is this person an ex-employee?
I don't have any information regarding that.
Are you looking for another shooter?
We are clearing the building and searching the building in a slow, methodical manner like we would do anyway. So we haven't eliminated that possibility, but we have no information to suggest that there's somebody else in there that we're looking for.
Where are the employees now? We saw them walking down the street.
Yeah, a lot of employees self-evacuated, as you can imagine. We've identified a group that we want to talk to, and we have staging areas where our detectives are reaching out to them and interviewing them. So we're trying to do as orderly as we can, but a lot of people, pretty hectic scenario. So it's a task.
About how many people had to be evacuated now? We saw them walking down the street.
Yeah.
Identified in question?
No, I believe my understanding is that the building has been evacuated, so they're all outside of that building.
Okay, how many people are you talking about here?
Well, several hundred, a few hundred. I'm sorry, a few hundred. It was my understanding.
In what floor was she?
I don't know.
And was her boyfriend there? That's what.
Oh, I have no. I have no idea. I don't know the circumstances surrounding this.
And it was
this
only
at all.
one shooter.
I don't want to eliminate any possibility. I don't know any of that for sure. Like I said, this is still active. We're still investigating this as I'm speaking to you. So there's a lot of things that I just simply don't know right now.
And is sure that the shots started in the courtyard? Do you know anything?
I don't have that information. All right. I will try to get you an update as soon as we can once we know more. But I think that I've given you almost everything that we know at this point. So I appreciate it. Yeah, when we know, I don't want to give you a time because I may not have a lot for you. So when we can identify a time that's appropriate to come back and update you again, we'll do that immediately.
How will you put the information?
We'll probably put that out through our media list and through social media.
Sorry, Chief. We understand from one employee that police had to borrow badges in order to access parts of the building. Did you have any trouble getting where you needed to go?
I don't have any information regarding that right now.
Okay.
Is there a problem with security at YouTube? We heard there's not even metal detectors in the
we're not even at that point yet. We're still trying to address the situation in front of us. Okay, I will get you some more information in a few minutes.
Okay, so there's the San Bruno police chief outlining exactly what they are able to confirm at this time, and that is that there are 3 shooting victims. All 3 of those victims that we know of are being treated at San Francisco General. This according to our Paul Chambers, who spoke with officials at San Francisco General a short time ago. 2 of them are women, a 37-year-old and a 32-year-old. Those 2 are in fair and serious condition. The most serious, though, is a 36-year-old man who right now is in critical condition. A 4th person who was found there on the YouTube headquarters campus is a woman who police believe is the suspected shooter, and they say that she died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. We've been talking to our various reporters who are fanned out all across this area. KTV's Jesse Gary has been talking to witnesses, and a few of them are telling him that the suspected shooter first targeted her boyfriend before continuing to fire and then ultimately shooting and killing herself. But again, no official confirmation from authorities on a motive or relationship between the suspected shooter and any of today's victims.
Yeah, and you heard the chief of police from San Bruno talk about what happens now. The building has been cleared. There are no more employees inside the YouTube headquarters. They're on Cherry Avenue. And right now, police are going through that building in what he called a methodical search to make sure no one else is in there that could be a threat. He said he does not believe anyone like that is in the building, but they don't want to take any chances, so they are going through door to door, office to office, cubicle to cubicle to make sure that the area is clear before they allow employees back in the building. Presumably, it's going to be shut down for some hours through the night while they do that search, and then we'll see what happens tomorrow on when YouTube will get back to its normal operations in San Bruno. The other active scene right now is, if you're looking at these live pictures from Skyfox, just to the left side of your screen, you can see those pinkish red colored umbrellas. That is where the shooter's body was found and covered with a yellow tarp. The San Mateo County Coroner's Office has responded to the scene. They will take custody of that body at some point and then confirm what the sheriff said he believes happened, that the shooter, died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. That will take place during an autopsy in the days ahead. But in the meantime, that is a crime scene that is being gone over now by evidence technicians and other investigators to try to find out everything they can about exactly what happened. They'll be looking for casings from the gunshots. They'll be looking at the weapon. They'll be looking at everything that has anything to do with this shooting to try to piece together forensically the timeline, the sequence of events, where the shooter was, when shots were fired, where the victims were hit, what directions they were running, what directions the bullets were flying, all of that to try to pinpoint detailed second by second what transpired. And that's going to take quite a bit of time to do that. It
certainly will. And as we have been reporting, the ATF also on scene. Again, we have learned through police dispatch recording that a gun was recovered. Again, the police chief at this time not elaborating on what type of gun was used. Also wouldn't elaborate on exactly the number of shots that were fired. But in earlier video that we have from Skyfox, you can actually see a door, a glass door with its windows completely shattered, shot out, really, and it's just there it is right there. And this, to give you perspective on where this is right near the areas. Just a few moments ago, we were looking at that outdoor area with the red canopies, and this is where just a few feet away the shooter's body was found.
Exactly, the body is just a few feet from that door. And we heard somebody describe to Jesse Gary that the person was inside when the shots began at some kind of an event, a celebration or party or something that was happening inside a boardroom or a conference room inside the YouTube headquarters. That's where the gunfire started, and then it progressed to the outside. And this one person told KTV's Jesse Gary that the shooter actually shot through that door to escape. So that may not be normal access to get in and out of the building. It could be some kind of an emergency door, or perhaps it was locked or whatever, but or maybe she just wanted to shoot through the window. Who knows? But that's what was described to Jesse Gary about why that door is shot out, and then just a few feet away, the shooter then apparently took her own life. We also heard the police chief talk about wanting to interview about 100 or so YouTube employees. So we don't know if those were all people that happened to be inside that event or party or whatever it was that was taking place inside the building when the shooting started, to get their versions, their eyewitness accounts of what they saw transpire and how all of this broke down. But what we have been told, Jesse Gary has been told, was that this suspect, this shooter, this woman appeared on the scene apparently targeting her boyfriend, who we understand may work at YouTube. That's how all of this started. And then after the boyfriend was targeted, other people were shot as the woman made her way outside the building. And now we stand with 3 people wounded by gunfire, all of them at San Francisco General Hospital. And by the way, in about 9 minutes, we're expecting to hear from a surgeon at SF General who will give us more details on the injuries that those 3 people have. The most serious is a 36-year-old man who is in critical condition from his gunshot wounds.
And as we take a live look now at the large campus, this is not the only building that YouTube owns in this area. The headquarters involves a couple of buildings, actually. It's a fairly large, open environment, a campus of about 1,700 employees. So to think that now, right now, in this stage of the investigation, authorities are looking to talk to 100 says to me that perhaps where this happened was being attended by a small group of people in that area. And again, you're looking live now at pictures from Sky Fox of the area that police are focusing on most right now, because just beyond those red umbrellas is where the body of the suspected shooter is lying right now under a yellow tarp as we wait for the San Mateo County coroner to arrive and for officials to take a look at the gun. A lot of questions about the type of gun that was used, if it belonged to the shooter, if it was legally purchased. Obviously, we heard from California Senator Dianne Feinstein and Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, who, after offering thoughts and prayers and sending condolences, if you will, to everyone affected by this, also talked about the need for more gun control, going right there, if you will, in this ongoing debate as we see here in the Bay Area another mass shooting.
We saw from Sky Fox, you could see the freeway right nearby the YouTube headquarters. We understand that Interstate 280 was briefly shut down during this incident to make sure that there was no danger that passed beyond. You know, if a bullet can travel quite a distance, usually at least a mile or so, and that building is less than a mile from the freeway.
Right.
So there was some concern that perhaps some gunfire could get well beyond the campus of YouTube and cause some problems, but the freeway is now back open.
But also the fact that they weren't sure who the shooter was, the location of the shooter. So not only did you have the concern about potential gunfire, but also the fact that they didn't know where the shooter was located at that time, and that they needed to make sure that no drivers were at jeopardy. Here's another look at just where all of this is taking place. And as you see here with that red marker, that is the location of this large sort of campus, if you will, that belongs to YouTube. And then we're hearing a lot from people who were at the nearby Carl's Jr. Some of them actually treated at least one of the gunshot victims. We heard that she suffered perhaps a wound to her leg or a foot. Several people that were inside the Carl's Jr., she came in looking for help. Several people that were inside tried to do what they could. And one man told our Jesse Gary that he grabbed a bungee cord to use it as a tourniquet to try to stop the bleeding. And then we also heard from another person who was in the Carl's Jr. area who heard several gunshots. He said that he heard several series of loud bursts, a couple of gunshots, a pause, several more gunshots fired, another pause, and then another sudden burst of gunshot. He described coming across at least 2 victims. As we heard from the police chief, at least 3 of the victims were found outside nearby businesses, so one can assume that those are the victims that many of the people who were just stopping by Carl's Jr. to grab a bite to eat encountered when all of this was unfolding. And then you see that hashes and bruise there towards the bottom of your screen. They also reported that a couple of people came running into their business too, Ken, with indications that they were involved in this.
Well, according to the person who told us about that, they said that one person was skimmed by a bullet in the head, another person was shot in the ankle, and the third was shot in the hand. But all of these are going to have to be kind of put together to see which different victims we're talking about, because that's 3 victims at Hashes and Brew. We have reports of at least one person shot in the leg or the foot at Carl's Jr. that showed up. But in any event, people were fleeing from the YouTube headquarters, running for safety, and the closest places where they could find help were these 2 restaurants. And you know, give it to the people who were there. They stepped up and rendered assistance right away. We want to also mention that San Mateo County Supervisor David Canepa, if I'm saying his name correctly, Canepa, has just put out a statement, and I want to read this to you. This is from the San Mateo County Supervisor. He says, "I commend the YouTube employees who maintained their composure during this tragic event and the incredible response by law enforcement officers who quickly secured the campus. This is a resilient community that will recover with each other's support. I assure the survivors that they will not be alone in their recovery." So another local politician stepping up, expressing support for the victims and sorrow for what happened here today.
Yeah, and right now it appears as though some of those YouTube employees who were most involved in this, if you will, are being they were taken off of the campus and are in a different area, kind of a secured location. The police chief we heard a short time ago said that there were about 100 people that he had hoped to talk with about what they saw, what they heard. Was there any communication between the suspected shooter, again, a woman, they say, involved in this, and anyone in that courtyard area? Did she, and perhaps her boyfriend, as we're hearing from witnesses that she targeted, did they have any communication? Did she say anything to him or anyone else? There are questions about how exactly she got onto this campus with a gun. Was there any sort of security personnel? And as we learn that information and a way to find out more, we're now going to take you live to San Francisco General and listen to them as they describe the severity of those who are currently being treated there.
We've received a total of 3 patients, and we do not expect additional patients from this incident. We have 2 females and 1 male. The females are ages 32. That patient is in serious condition. We have a 27-year-old female in fair condition. And we have a 36-year-old male who is in critical condition. As I said, we do not expect additional patients from this incident. I will give you further updates tonight if there are significant updates to be given. If not, I will give you a full update tomorrow morning. The San Bruno Police Department, in partnership with YouTube, are setting up a family reunification center, and you can contact the San Bruno Police Department for information about that. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Andre Campbell, who's been a trauma surgeon here at Zuckerberg San Francisco General for many, many years. He's going to discuss with you the types of injuries we've seen and the effects of those injuries.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Andre Campbell. I'm a trauma surgeon here at the Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital. Once again, we are confronted with the specter of mass casualty situation here in the city and county of San Francisco, where we've now had 3 victims who have come in that we've taken care of. This is unfortunate, and it continues. You think that after we've seen Las Vegas, Parkland, the Pulse nightclub shooting, that we would see an end to this, but we have not. But I'll just say a couple things. First of all, San Francisco General Hospital, Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital, is the only level 1 trauma center in San Francisco. But it means that we receive all the victims who get injured, and these victims came from just south of San Francisco, which is part of our catchment area. But we stand ready 24/7 to care for anyone who is injured, whether it's from gunshot wounds today, from falls, from car accidents, from bikes, for all the other things that we do regularly here at the Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital. So what happened was we were activated, and when we get activated here, when you have a mass casualty situation, what happens is all the doctors, the nurses, the therapists come down to the emergency room. We do an assessment and we do a triage, working with everyone, and we're able then to deal with all the patients that we had. And we're able to diagnose their problems, treat them, and make sure they get appropriate care. I can't tell you all the specific injuries, but I can tell you one thing, is that when people are shot either in extremities or in the chest, they have significant injuries from gunshots. We've seen a lot of injuries from handguns. We've seen injuries from AK-47s or AR-15s. These are not those today as far as we know, right? But what happens is that when they get shot, it creates a major crisis. What happens is we then have to be activated and care for them. The trauma system starts with the care that the patients receive in the field from our dedicated paramedics. They bring the patients to us after the police have secured the scene, which they did. Once they come in, then we do an assessment working with the trauma surgeons, the ED physicians, the nurses, and the anesthesiologists. We all get together. We do what is right for the patients. So we basically go through things from top to bottom, making sure we diagnose their injuries, and we take care of them. And that's what we do here at the Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital, the only trauma center in San Francisco. So I'll just tell you that that's what we do. That is what has happened, and I'll begin to answer the questions that you have. But once again, hold on. Once again, this is a terrible day in the United States when once again we have a multiple casualty situation that has confronted us here at the Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital.
Can you
Thank
confirm
you.
that these are gunshot victims?
Yes.
Yeah, and
they're gunshot victims.
And what kind of, do you have any indication of what kind of gunshots?
I don't have indication for that.
And can you tell us the nature of the wounds?
No, I can't tell you the details of each of the wounds. I could just tell you what he told you about the
But
injuries
you have
they
ruled out automatic, semi-automatic weapons.
I have not ruled out anything because I have to ask the people at the scene.
Okay, I thought you said there was no AK-47 or.
You could tell me that. I don't know that.
Okay. Doctor, what does critical mean?
Critical means that the chance that they could die.
Can you specify what critical and serious condition actually determines?
So usually stable means that they have minor injuries, right? Critical means that they've had more life-threatening injuries, either truncal injuries or extremity injuries. Truncal means the chest and abdomen and this area here or the head, right? So that means that they've had some kind of penetrating injury there, and then it sort of goes. So then critical means that they've had injuries where they've sustained a blood loss related to some of the injuries that they've had.
So critical, can you talk
It's really
about,
for you guys we do that, right?
So can you tell us...
For us, everybody gets shot as critical,
You
right?
can't tell us where the gunshot went?
No, I can't. That would be violate HIPAA. Would you want me to do that?
Absolutely not.
Wouldn't want me to do that.
No, absolutely
You
not.
have to behave today.
Yeah.
Are these patients stable?
Can you talk into the mic when you're talking?
No. He told you what the conditions are of the patients.
Dr. Campbell, why
Yes.
do you think that there's not going to be a significant change between now and this evening and perhaps tomorrow?
Say again, why is what?
Why do you think there is not going to be a significant change in their condition between now and later tonight? Fred said maybe if there is a change, we'll come back and update you. We're not necessarily confident there will be. Why is that?
So I'll tell you that trauma patients are very active. Now, when things change, they change from moment to moment. So right now, we've stabilized the condition. We put the patient in the appropriate place, but they can start to bleed. And they start to bleed, then we have to operate on them. We have to do other things to do them. And that's basically our best guess right now. But it can change at any moment. That's why we put people where they need to be so they can be monitored.
Dr. Campbell, are there families by their side?
Say again? No.
No surgery?
No surgery.
Even the critical patient?
They have not in surgery yet.
Are there families by their side?
I don't know that.
Are they going to surgery, sir?
No,
They're not going to surgery?
not right now.
Are these patients awake? Are they aware of what happened?
Yes, they are.
All three?
Yes.
Did they say anything you can relate to us, sir?
Anything you can describe about their reaction?
No, other than shocked like we are every time these terrible things happen.
Can you tell us the process of whenever you guys receive a patient of this level, what's your process? What do you guys get into?
Okay, so just a little bit of education for a moment. So what happens is, sorry about that, every time someone comes in, we use these techniques called advanced trauma life support, which has been pioneered for the last 30 or 40 years. All right, basically what we do is we go from top to bottom to do an assessment. We look at their airway, whether or not they're breathing, right? Whether or not we look at the airway, if they're breathing in and out, they're breathing, moving their chest wall, if their blood pressure, the pulse is stable. We then look at the injuries that they have in terms of disability, try to figure out what their mental status is, and we expose them where we take off their clothes and we look to make sure we've gotten all the injuries. So we look in every part of the body to make sure. Then we basically then do a secondary survey where we go from top to bottom, look in every detail, look to the head, neck, chest, abdomen, pelvis, extremities to make sure that we have not missed anything. This is a standard thing that not only we do here, but we do that at all major trauma centers around the world, because it's called advanced trauma life support, which is a way that everybody takes care of trauma patients when they're injured. This is the standard that's done at every major trauma center around the United States.
How many shots?
Does that answer your question?
How many shots have they sustained, Dr. Campbell?
How many what?
Shots. Do you know? How many
I don't know.
shots
I don't know that number. I don't know the number.
Just want to confirm again to you, they have not been in surgery?
They have not been in surgery.
And can you specify or be more, tell us why they have not been in surgery? Or is that too much information to give?
That's too much information. You guys always want to do that. Like,
Yeah, we do. We get as
why
much
do you got
as
to
we
do
can.
that? You just like ask the same question. You're almost like lawyers.
The ethnicity of the patients?
No, I can't.
Based on the bullet wounds, do you have an idea of what sort of firearm was used for this?
No, I don't.
You said it was not an AK.
We don't think so.
Just to be clear, were all three victims, victims of gunshot wounds, or were there any?
Yeah, they were victims of gunshot wounds.
Were they all shot multiple times?
They had multiple injuries.
But you can't confirm if they have multiple gunshots.
No, I can't confirm that.
When you say they, does that mean every individual person had multiple injuries?
Every person was shot who was here today. We have 3 victims, they all were shot.
But when you say they had multiple injuries, does that mean each person had multiple injuries?
Well, you have 2 holes, that means you have multiple injuries, right?
Each one of them?
Yes.
So no one was shot once. Each person was shot more than once?
I don't think I can say that.
Okay.
Is there a sense why one is critical, the other is fair, and the other is just serious? I mean, would that be proximity to the shooter?
I can't make that conclusion. I can just tell you that from what I see, because of the injuries the patient has, that they are critical. I know you want to know more details, but I can't give you any more.
Earlier in the day, we were told that more patients were expected here. Is there a reason why you guys are no longer expecting more?
Originally, what happens is whenever these mass casualty situations happen, there's a lot of confusion, and you guys are maybe part of it. Well, we may be part of it, and other people are part of it. And what happens is we're told that we have X amount of victims. So we were originally told we were going to get 4 victims, well, we only got 3. But we get ready for as many as we have to take care of. That's kind of what we do. We get ready for everyone else. We mobilize all the teams that need to be done to make sure we're ready to take care of any patient who's injured. And that's what any trauma center does when we get a call that we have a mass casualty incident, so more than 1 patient coming in. But the reality is that last week we had a mass casualty situation here. The week before we had another. I didn't see all these cameras out here today. Those last week when I was here, right? I didn't see that, right? So that's the problem, right? When something like this happens, which is terribly unfortunate, then you guys come out. But the reality is we have to deal with this all the time. We have to deal with the families, the injuries. We have to deal with this constantly, and it's quite unfortunate, right? Because everybody gets hurt. It's important that we make sure we take care of them. We do the best we can for everyone every day.
Speaking of families, sir, are the families of the victims here?
I don't know that.
Is the emergency area still under lockdown? Do you know that part?
It is.
Still under lockdown.
How long will it remain that way?
Not long.
Do you expect that to change within the hour?
We'll let you know.
Yeah. Well, I honestly can't speculate about that. So maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Yes.
Is it possible that any of the 3 patients might be going into surgery anytime soon today?
I can't speculate on that, but I could say that if they need it, we'll do it. Right now, we don't have to do it.
Doctor, when you say this happens all the time, you see us out here, are you referring to gun violence happens all the time?
Now I'm talking about you, the press.
Right.
Gun violence happens every day throughout the United States. Happens here in San Francisco, happens in the Bay Area, happens all over the country. Right, but I don't see you guys out here because I'd like to make sure that people know that we got a serious problem that we need to address. I don't have all the answers, but I could say that at least we're having a discussion about it nationally, I think, which is a good thing. But this is a real problem.
What's it like dealing with this every day?
It's hard.
Okay.
But we got to go.
Let's stop there. Again, if there are significant changes tonight, I will outreach to the media and let you know about the changes. Otherwise, you can expect to hear from me tomorrow morning when I will give you a complete detail of our status tomorrow morning.
These victims expected to stay overnight, all 3?
I can't speculate on that. Okay?
Doctor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Expecting you experience that these patients will all be here overnight?
I can't answer that either.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you all for coming and thank you for answering questions. And I hope we're able to help you. I know there's some things that we couldn't answer satisfactorily for you, but we did as best we could.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out.
All right, you've been watching a news conference live from San Francisco General Hospital by Dr. Andre Campbell, a trauma surgeon there, who was talking about the injuries suffered by the 3 patients who were brought in. All of them have gunshot injuries. The most pressing concern is the 36-year-old male who is in critical condition. Then we have a 27-year-old woman in fair condition and a 32-year-old woman in serious condition. The doctor did say that none of them have been through surgery, and it's not clear if any will anytime soon. He said sometimes surgery isn't required or necessary, and the medical care doesn't always dictate surgery, even in a mass casualty situation like this. We have now on the phone with us San Mateo County Supervisor David Canepa. David, I don't know if I said your last name correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but thanks for joining us, and tell us what you know about what happened today at the YouTube
Well, first of all,
headquarters.
yeah, you did say it correctly. It's David Canapa. I'm San Mateo County Supervisor representing North San Mateo County, and in particular San Bruno. I just want to, and I know you just came from a press conference, I want to thank General Hospital, Zuckerberg. In North San Mateo County, we do not have a trauma center, and so they provide tremendous service to North San Mateo County. Today is a tragedy. Today is one of those days that you wish upon no one. And our public safety should be commended, our police, our fires, our first responders. When you deal with an issue like this, there's chaos, there's a lot of things that don't work. And so when you have an active shooter, there are a lot of things that can go astray. And so our first responders dealt with the situation, active shooter, in the most appropriate way. YouTube, in particular, is one of the largest employers in San Bruno. So there's it's located in a business park, and so there's a tremendous amount of activity. In regards to, do I have anything to update you on? I think Zuckerberg, General Hospital provided you updates on currently what's happening relative to the victims, and so it's important that North San Mateo County, San Bruno, that we're a resilient community, and we have to recover with each other's support. And so that's the information I have for you.
Supervisor, the police chief gave a press conference a couple of hours ago with some very limited details about what took place here today. We know there are 3 shooting victims, all of them at San Francisco General, and we know that the suspect, the shooter, is a woman who killed herself, apparently. That's what the chief believes. Outside that, do you know anything at all about the connection that the shooter had? We've been hearing from some witnesses telling our reporters there in San Bruno that the shooter was a woman who targeted her boyfriend at the YouTube campus and then opened fire on him and ultimately shot herself after she shot at least 3 other people. Do you know anything more than that?
I don't have any details in regards to whether it was a boyfriend. I don't know at this time. I've heard no information relative to that. I will tell you that when the police department deals with these particular issues, and while we want information to come out as quickly as possible, sometimes that information can't come out because they're still collecting, background. And so I understand what the chief is doing, but if I do hear of anything, I will keep you informed.
Supervisor Heather Holmes now joining you. Quick question. Have you ever been to this location? Have you been to the YouTube headquarters in San Bruno? Okay. Is there security, or describe the security there? And is this one of those gun-free zones, if you will?
Heather, that's an excellent question. There are multiple entry points into these locations. My understanding is it's done through a security card. I've been there on several occasions. One time I was there was security. Another time I was there was not. But my understanding is there is card key access, and so that's how I remember my my experience at YouTube. You have to remember the way the campus is appropriated. There's the YouTube on one side of the street, and there's a YouTube. But they have different buildings there, Heather.
Right. That's what we were sort of clarifying for our viewers at home, that the building that they're seeing our Skyfox sort of focus on is not the only building owned by YouTube, that it actually is a fairly large open environment campus, because when you think about it, Supervisor, there's about 1,700 people that work for YouTube at this location, so at least those 2 buildings owned by YouTube. But again, in regards to a gun-free zone, like what you would have on a school campus, does that exist here at the YouTube headquarters? Do you know?
I don't. To my knowledge, I don't know. I don't know. What I could tell you in particular about that business park is that it's just not YouTube, Heather. There's you have other large companies. You have Kaiser. So unlike Google, right, which has their own sort of Googleplex, this is a business park that has other businesses. Okay, and so it's distinctly different than, for example, when you go to Facebook campus, it's Facebook. This is a business park that includes other businesses.
Right, including Walmart e-commerce. In fact, we did hear from some people there who were telling us earlier in the day that they heard the gunshots from their location, from inside their offices. So that gives viewers at home an idea of just how close some of these in this business park, some of these other businesses are located to the YouTube headquarters in this business park area.
And I will tell you, right next to the YouTube, Heather, is that there is, you know, there's different stores. There's Starbucks. So there are a lot of people who there's a Molly Stone's. So it's just not the business park in that that area. There's also a lot of retail.
Supervisor, are you talking to police about the investigation that's going on? We had heard that there was some kind of event inside a conference room or a boardroom, some kind of a celebration or a party of some kind that was the location where the shooting started, and then it moved outside. Have you heard anything about how these events unfolded?
No, I have not. I have not. I have not heard of that, no.
And do you get a sense of how long this scene is going to be secured? Because the chief did say that there's going to be a methodical search, we presume, is underway right now to go through the entire building to make sure it's safe. Do you know when things will start to get back to normal there?
You know, I don't know, but let me tell you, when it comes to an active shooter, what needs to be done is making sure that the area is secure. And no matter how long it takes, you want to make sure that it's done correctly. And so I can only imagine that the police chief is thinking and working with, you know, police personnel. What can we do to make sure when we clear these buildings that there are no surprises? And so they're going to do their due diligence. They're going to do it correctly. They're going to do it the right way. And if it takes time, they're going to do that, right? There's no hurry. They want to make sure that they do it right. They want to make sure that they do it in the appropriate way. And they want to make sure that law enforcement or people in the building, if there are still other people, that they're safe. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably the best course of action.
I think we all want to know who this woman was, what her motivation was, how she got her weapon, whether it was legally purchased or not, and all of those things. But I'm curious, what is it that you want to know? What are you going to be seeking to find out? And what can we learn from this to try to make sure it doesn't happen again?
You know, one of the things that really struck me when I found out about this incident is that it was a female shooter. And so what I'm curious to sort of understand, when sometimes you have these mass casualties or shootings, there's a certain profile, right? And so what I'm curious to know is why, you know, why did she do this, and what led up to it? Was there a reason? Was there a random act? What was the reason why she did what she did? And so, as you know, we know what's happened in Las Vegas. We know what's happened in Orlando. We know what's happened in these various shootings. Typically, these shootings are done by males. So I'm curious to know why we have a female shooter.
That is, we've talked about that earlier today. It's not unheard of, but it is definitely more unusual than not. And it's interesting that you bring this up because Dr. Andre Campbell, the trauma surgeon at San Francisco General Hospital, referenced Las Vegas, Parkland, Orlando, and other shootings across the country. And he said the cameras aren't at San Francisco General's emergency room every night when he has to deal with gun violence in the Bay Area. So we think of these mass shootings, but they do happen every day, and they do happen in San Mateo County, which is nowadays more than ever a very upscale, expensive place to live with highly educated people. but we still have these things happening.
Well, we have to understand gun violence understands no boundaries, whether it's socioeconomic, whatever it is. We're all touched in it in some way. And so you can go to a country concert in Las Vegas thinking that you're going to have a good time, and unfortunately, you could die there. You could, you can go to school, you can go to work at YouTube. This is the reality, and unfortunately, I hate to say this, this is our new norm, and so we have to address those big issues. We have to address those issues that the doctor referred to, that he sees victims every day, but none of us are immune to this sort of violence.
Well, as a lawmaker on the local level, what do you see coming out of this? Because you're going to have gun rights supporters, Second Amendment people are going to say, see, even in California, which is not a friendly state toward owning guns, puts a lot more restrictions than most places do on owning a weapon. And here we are with having this kind of a situation where we've seen these in other places where it's easier to get a gun than it is here.
I think it's a pretty good question. It's a loaded question, no pun intended. This is a serious issue, and so whether it's people's access to firearms, whether it's mental health, whatever it is, it's an issue we all have to address in one way or the other. There's different states working on various gun laws. There's other people who are addressing it through mental health. There are people who are saying that, hey, we have to, ban assault rifles. And there's all sorts of discourse and discussion on what we should do. We do know this to be true. Make no mistake about it. The access to firearms, whether you live in California or where you live in Texas, the ability to get a firearm is not very hard, and so it's a complicated question. And so I think a lot of people, policymakers, are trying to solve it, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So,
and we know, Supervisor, that the issue of gun control, access to guns, will of course be a part of the conversation in the days and months following this mass shooting at the YouTube headquarters, really in your backyard in San Bruno. Can you talk to me about the coordination of law enforcement response? You had the San Bruno police chief talking about what his officers encountered. They got the calls around 12:46, and within 2 minutes, the first officers were there, and shortly thereafter, they found all four of the people shot, including the suspected shooter, the woman who apparently came to the YouTube headquarters armed with a gun. But talk with me a little bit about working with different agencies. You had San Bruno Police, you had the San Mateo County Sheriff, and other agencies.
So let me tell you this. I am the chair of the San Mateo County Office of Emergency Services. They are constantly, when it comes to active shooting, these agencies, we have in San Mateo County, we have about 20 police agencies. We have the sheriff's office. They're constantly training for incidents such as these. And so how do they do it, right? Making sure of how to enter a building, what the building looks like, practicing. And these are, these are professionals that are, they're training for this. It's not like they're just not prepared for it. And so they're running through different scenarios. They're having conversations. Again, when I talk about the new norm, and the new norm of, this violence and people getting shot and all this sort of thing on a mass scale, what's happening is law enforcement, specifically in San Mateo County, and I would assume the whole Bay Area, they're training, Heather. They're going through this, and that's why when you told me that and you shared that with me, the response time, that's pretty remarkable when you think about it.
It is, and thank you so much, Supervisor, for taking the time to talk with us, again, walking us through things from your perspective as we all sort of await to hear more information about a motive, about the relationship between the suspected shooter and the victims, again, at the YouTube headquarters in San Bruno. Supervisor, thank you.
There's going to be a long day trying to assess what happened here today, and we're going to be covering all of that coming up. The 4 o'clock news starts in just a moment.